there's one thing that I've learned about divers in my career, is that scuba divers don't like change, which does make innovation kind of tricky, but one of our editors has actually just taken a course on the new Avelo diving system, which is revolutionizing how scuba divers control their buoyancy. Hi, all of you awesome scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diving Magazine channel, your favorite place for the latest scuba diving news and gear reviews. And yes, when Avelo was first announced a few years back, it did turn a lot of heads in the diving industry because it's something not very different, but quite different to what most open circuit divers especially are used to. And if you're interested in the Avelo diving system, how it works, how the course works especially, our Australian New Zealand editor is going to publish a write-up on his thoughts in the November issue of the magazine. But yeah, I thought in this video it'll be nice just to break down kind of what Avelo is and kind of how it works and how it's different to what we're typically used to. If you ask any scuba diver which skill most defines an enjoyable, low-stress underwater experience, you'll probably hear the same answer, and that's your buoyancy. Traditional open-circuit scuba, which a good 99% of divers learn on, achieves your buoyancy by adding or releasing air, or at least some kind of gas, from a buoyancy compensator, which we call a BCD, whilst carrying enough lead to offset the diver's and the equipment's inherent buoyancy. If you're looking at like your wetsuit and whatnot, wetsuits tend to float. Divers, typically your body does float, and you need that lead to help you sink. And that traditional system works, but it also means juggling, expanding and contracting air bubbles as depth changes, plus hauling heavy kit to and from the water. The Avelo system proposes a different path. Instead of moving air or a gas in and out of a BCD, it subtly changes the mass of the system by taking in or dumping water, producing a stable, depth-independent, neutral buoyancy and dramatically lighter topside load, so you're not carrying around heavy weight belts. Avelo is not a rebreather. It's just an open circuit system similar to what you're using, similar regulators, that just reimagines like the buoyancy management part whilst keeping the rest of the breathing loop conventional. You still breathe from a standard 2-stage regulator. Exhaled gas leaves. You know, you blow bubbles into the water as usual, but what changes is the way that you establish and maintain neutral buoyancy, the BCD part of the whole setup, by controlling water ballast inside of the tank instead of nursing a compressible air bubble on your back. Conventional BCDs are variable volume devices. Because air's volume changes with pressure as you ascend and descend, that's Boyle's law, a small depth change expands or compresses that BCD bubble, nudging you positive on ascent and negative on descent. So you have to continually adjust your buoyancy. Divers respond with constant tweaks, tapping the inflator or pulling on the dump, trim with your breathing. This cycle is very familiar and sometimes fatiguing, especially if it's a brand new setup. Avelo flips the script with a variable density approach. Its Hydrotank is a constant volume pressure vessel that contains a tough, flexible inner bladder for breathing gas. A small battery-powered pump lets the diver admit ambient water to that space around the bladder, increasing the system's mass and therefore its average density without changing its volume. To become neutrally buoyant, you add just enough water to counter your positive buoyancy. As you consume gas mass during the dive, you occasionally top off with a little more water to replace the lost weight. Because the tank's volume doesn't change with depth, your neutral point remains stable across the water column. Practically, this yields a remarkably calm buoyancy profile. You start positive on the surface, so you're floating on the surface when you first jump in. You press a button to add water until you feel neutral. You descend, you enjoy a long stretch underwater, often like 20 to 25 minutes of hands-off neutral buoyancy. You don't even have to think about it. Later on in the dive, you add roughly a litre of water, so that's about 2.2 pounds, to replace the mass of gas that you've breathed, and then you continue the dive. There's no ballooning air pocket if you go over something to amplify depth errors, and lung volume once again becomes like the fine-tuning tool, not a wild card. Avelo's Hydrotank is a composite over-wrapped pressure vessel with a flexible internal bladder connected to a standard 300 bar DIN valve. Most modern DIN regulators rated to 300 bar will be used. Always confirmed with your regulator's manual, and if you actually look at the DIN section on a first stage, you'll see whether it's 232 bar or 300 bar. Avelo offers two sizes. There's a 10 litre, which is about 106 cubic feet at 300 bar, or 80 cubic feet at around 228 bar, and a smaller 8 litre, which is about 84 cubic feet and 300 bar, or the 65 cubic feet at 228 bar. The system is rated to 200 meters, which is a lot deeper than I can go anyway, and the Hydrotank can be filled anywhere between 206 and 300 bar, depending on the compressor availability. The Jetpack is a backplate style carrier that mounts the Hydrotank behind you, similar to a backplate, and then the Hydrotank is the cylinder, and the Jetpack houses the battery and the pump. It's all very streamlined with attachment points for standardized accessories. Batteries recharge in roughly 40 minutes, so that's a good surface interval, and depending on diver experience, typically supports several dives per charge, often 2 to 4 for newer divers, up to 7 or 8 for experienced divers. So you get plenty of dives out of a single charge. A purely mechanical purge valve allows you to dump water instantly, akin to dropping a weight, to become positive at the surface in an emergency, or to manage emergencies without relying on the pump or the battery. Avelo markets a major topside benefit in that it's less to carry. Where a conventional warm water kit might be around like 75 pounds, 32 kilos, the Avelo package is presented closer to 45 pounds or 20 kilos. Actual savings are going to vary on like configuration and field pressure, but you're still saving some weight, so it's less to carry around. The Hydrotank's buoyancy characteristics also mean many divers use little to no traditional lead, reserving small trim weights just to get yourself perfectly horizontal in the water, or a weight belt sort of primarily for like thick exposure suits or dry suits where you just need a little extra lead. Avelo lists DOT, CE and AGA approvals with manufacturers to ISO standards. A technical documentation page provides battery MSDS details and points to like airline requirements for transporting lithium batteries, so they're fully done all their paperwork, and I'll put a link down in the description for that. So you begin your dive positively buoyant, as if you've inflated your BCD. With Avelo, you don't have to inflate your BCD because there isn't one. On the surface, you then press Jetpack's button to introduce water around the gas bladder until you're neutrally buoyant. Then you descend without adding air to any BCD or anything, because there isn't one. The system remains neutrally buoyant over a broad depth range with no expanding bubble behind you. You're not being like pushed shallower or deeper by small depth changes. Divers often report hovering precision with minimal effort, using breathing or fine control, and again, because you've got no like air bubble, even if you like change your position in the water, it's not going to suddenly like right you because all the gas is going to the top section. There isn't that gas bubble. After 20-25 minutes of your dive, depending on how quickly you breathe your gas, you briefly top up with about a litre of water to replace that consumed gas mass, because the gas that you're breathing and then exhaling, it does have some weight to it. Even though it doesn't feel particularly heavy, you do have to replace that mass. When it's time to go up, You simply swim up to the surface. At the surface, you can open the mechanical purge valve, the water drains, the system becomes positively buoyant, and then you float. As far as exposure suits, Avelo emphasizes that wetsuit compression has a smaller effect on your buoyancy when you're not stabilizing a large air bubble as well. Divers using anything from like thin wetsuits to like 10 mil wetsuits report consistent control. With dry suits, you may add a bit of lead to manage the suit's actual compressible volume, but you still retain the system's lightweight feel and stable buoyancy. You just need to like adjust for a squeeze. Avelo is taught as a speciality. Recreational Avelo Diver, or RAD. It requires an existing open water certification or equivalent and is recognized globally, conforming to ISO 24802 standards for recreational diving, leadership and operations. The curriculum covers system setup, neutral buoyancy by water ballast, and all failure contingency procedures. Many dive centers now rent Avelo systems. There are a lot of them out there in the wild, but you must complete that RAD before renting. A growing piece of the ecosystem is Avelo Mode. You'll see it on several dive computers nowadays, a firmware feature for several shearwater air integrated computers, from the Tern, the Terric, the Peregrine and the Perdix. When paired with a Swift transmitter, they have an Avelo Mode, and it's also supported by Scuba Pro's G2C console. Avelo Mode helps to track gas usage, buoyancy status and workload, and supports post-dive analysis, useful for both personal improvement and for instruction. In 2025, Shearwater announced an Avelo-specific jetpack with onboard pressure monitoring and deeper integration with Avelo Mode. So Shearwater are moving sort of more into adopting Avelo, which is a sort of an R&D partnership to signal more tightly coupled hardware software experiences to come. One consideration is always safety and failure. Avelo designs buoyancy control to be manual and gradual. There's no auto inflation. It's not going to just do stuff by itself. Again, there's no large expanding air bladder, so the system aims to reduce the risk of uncontrolled ascents and descents that can occur with traditional BCD misuse or rapid gas expansion. The training program emphasizes lung control, conservative ascent rates, and the use of purely mechanical purge valves for deliberate positive buoyancy when needed. So what if something does break? According to Avelo's materials and training, if the battery dies or the pump fails, buoyancy doesn't change in a way that prevents you from finishing the dive. You remain stable, you can ascend normally, and you can still purge water mechanically at the surface, or if really needed, during the dive. If there's a bladder rupture, the design self-seals itself. The bladder against the cylinder wall, it seals itself under positive internal pressure, preventing flood through into the breathing gas. The gas remains contained. So as far as rescue scenarios, opening the purge valve is functionally similar to dumping your weight belts, making the diver positive for controlled assisted ascents. These procedures are practiced in Avelo courses. As with any life support systems, safe outcomes depend on training, checks, and conservative judgment. The company also notes the Hydrotank's conformity with common cylinder standards and multi-regional approvals. So as far as real-world accounts, divers who've logged time on Avelo frequently highlight two sensations: stability and ease. Without the changing volume air bubble, hovering can feel almost locked in. It's almost like it kind of does it without needing to adjust anything, and small position changes become a function of trim and breath. not like feathering an inflator. This subjective stability, coupled with a heightened awareness from Avelo Mode on compatible dive computers, has been a recurring theme in reviews, class write-ups, and travel pieces. Gas efficiency is a bit more nuanced. The system doesn't waste breathing gas for BCD inflation. If you breathe gas quickly anyway and you're constantly adjusting your buoyancy, every time you press that inflator, that's gas that you could be breathing. But a diver's respiratory minute volume, or your RMV, still dominates gas use. Some reviewers have found similar RMVs to their best conventional dives. Others, especially newer divers, report that the calmer buoyancy, reduced task load, and can translate into longer, more relaxed dives because they're not thinking about their BCD and their buoyancy, particularly when the hydrotank is filled to higher pressures, so your 300 bar cylinders, if you've got a compressor that supports it. Either way, the experience of neutral buoyancy with minimal fiddling is central to Avelo's appeal. Price. As of 2025, the Avelo system, which is the Jetpack and the Hydrotank, lists at just under $4,000 US, with itemized prices for the Jetpack kit, the Hydrotank, the battery, the charger, and the bladder available on the company's website. But most centers offer a rental, so if you're not into buying, a lot of divers don't own their own cylinders, so yeah, if you're looking to get into it, it's something that you can rent, and of course it's the same system around the world, so whatever you're given, you'll be able to recognize it. The Hydrotank, as I said earlier, uses a 300 bar DIN valve. Most modern DIN first stages rated for 300 bar are going to work. Just double check with manufacturer specifications, but yeah, it's the same 300 bar valve that you get on the top of most just standard dive cylinders. Yoke only regulators are not directly compatible without changing to a suitable DIN first stage or using an appropriate solution per manufacturer guidance. Many divers already prefer DIN nowadays for higher pressure cylinders. If it's a 300 bar, you're never going to fit an A clamp to it. It's just they don't support that kind of pressures. So yeah, but if you have your own DIN regulators, then yeah, you can fit it to an Avelo cylinder. If you are looking to get your own Hydrotank, the Hydrotank can be filled, as I said earlier, anywhere between 200 to 300 bar. Not every destination offers 300 bar air fills, and even if they do, in my experience, trying to get a true 300 bar is fairly tricky, but the system still works perfectly at lower pressures, so whatever you can get into it is a benefit, but total gas volume and thus available bottom time will reflect the lower fill. As far as travel, the battery recharges very quickly and is user swappable, so you can get replacements, but as with any lithium battery, you of course have to follow airline rules, so if you're traveling, just double check what size is allowed. And as I said earlier, Avelo provides an MSDS document that emphasizes checking current carrier restrictions before flying. In practice, many divers choose to train and then just rent a Hydrotank at destinations where Avelo systems operate rather than travel with the full kit. As far as availability, Avelo has been expanding via partner dive centers, with some locations offering Discover Avelo experiences for certified divers who want to just try it before taking on a specialty course, and you never know, it might change your perception on scuba diving. I remember the first time I tried out a rebreather and you're like, huh, why didn't I do this from the start? If you already have solid trim and buoyancy on a standard BCD, you'll feel at home very quickly when you're diving Avelo. Your breathing remains the primary fine-tune control. The biggest conceptual shift is recognizing that you're not chasing that compressible bubble anymore. So the seesaw feel of, oh, actually I'm getting a bit too floaty, I've got to ditch some gas, or vice versa, largely disappears. You'll also get used to periodic top-ups, just briefly adding some water to the ballast as you consume gas mass. In training, the rhythm becomes just second nature. Other things don't change. Pre-dive checks, pretty similar. Gas planning, buddy procedures, ascent rates, safety stops, your NDL, situational awareness, environmental etiquette are exactly as important as a diver. None of that changes, it's just your buoyancy, basically. The system may reduce task loading because you're not thinking about your buoyancy quite as much, but it doesn't replace judgment or like foundational scuba skills. So new and returning divers who struggle with buoyancy control often find the stability of Avelo calming, allowing them to focus on their trim, their propulsion, and their situational awareness. Less fiddling can mean less task load, which can then mean better control. Photographers and naturalists are going to appreciate the sticky, neutral buoyancy that doesn't shift with micro depth changes, which is useful when you're holding composition near delicate subjects. You're not going to be like moving around as much trying to like get that kind of perfect position, because the Avelo just kind of hangs there and holds you in place. If you're like me and you've been doing it for a certain amount of time, then if you've got travel weary backs, many divers value the lighter topside carry and the reduction or elimination of lead, especially when shore diving or climbing ladders. Getting out, you suddenly realize how heavy everything is as soon as you don't have buoyancy holding you up. So yeah, if you suffer from bad backs as I do, then yeah, this is definitely a win. Individual savings are of course going to vary with like exposure protection and local fill pressures, but yeah, it's still a benefit. That being said, expert divers dialed in on conventional gear may experience subtler gains, mainly in feel and convenience, rather than like dramatic changes of, wow, how come I've never used this before? If you've been diving traditional open circuit and you're really dialed in on like weights and your buoyancy, then yeah, you're like, okay, yeah, it still works, but the difference change is going to be a little bit smaller than like newer divers. The system's price and the DIN regulator requirements are additional factors to weigh in. Here in the UK, for example, DIN is quite popular, so it's not going to be that much of an issue. But it's always one of those things. If you have all of the gear already, then dropping all of that and then investing in a completely new system is going to be daunting. It's the same with rebreathers. But if you're just starting out, it's the perfect time to kind of change that decision and decide which kind of system you want to go down. Avelo is currently a premium system. It is brand new. Not every shop can filter 300 bar. If you already own your regulators, ensure 300 bar DIN compatibility or like budget for appropriate gear. Also consider where you dive most. Adoption is growing, but availability is still concentrated in certain regions and partner centers. As far as like electronics dependence, divers don't like relying on too much electronics in the water. The pump and the battery enable water admission, but core safety actions, including that mechanical purge valve to become positive, remain mechanical. It's something that you do. It's not something that if the battery fails or runs out or whatever it is, there's still a mechanical switch that you can turn to actually maintain positive buoyancy. Training explicitly covers battery or pump failures. You finish the dive neutrally buoyant and then you ascend normally. Still, diligent pre-dive checks and battery managements are part of the discipline. With thick wetsuits, the system's ballast approach handles compression gracefully. With dry suits, you may add some extra lead for suit buoyancy management. Dry suit users must show dry suit certification regardless of agency when diving with Avelo, as with like regular scuba. The promise of Avelo Mode. You've got real-time workload and post-dive buoyancy analytics. They may pay particular dividends in instruction and self-coaching, but its ultimate impact depends on divers and instructors engaging with that data thoughtfully. So the Avelo concept of like constant volume with variable density has been used in submarines for generations. Seeing it sensibly adapted to open circuit scuba is certainly noteworthy, and that's why it's turned a lot of heads in the dive community. The hardware is maturing. So yeah, you're getting the newer Shearwater Jetpack. The collaboration, the training pathway is codified, and the software layer, the Avelo Mode, hints at a future where buoyancy becomes more quantifiable and coachable in new ways. Previously, with traditional open circuit. As an instructor trying to teach a student about buoyancy, it's all done on kind of feel. There's no like quantifiable numbers, whereas Avelo Mode can tell you those kind of numbers. So you can say, yeah, here you need to do such and such. Whether Avelo becomes a real mainstream, like a standard, or just a valued niche will depend on availability, instructor adoption, and whether divers prioritize its blend of stability and simplicity over the flexibility of mixed brands like BCD setups. For now, it is a credible, well-engineered alternative that many divers will find very compelling to try, and some will choose to adopt. So if, like many other divers, you are intrigued, the next responsible step is education, not like DIY experimentation. You can't just grab an Avelo system and jump in the water and figure it out. So look for an Avelo dive center. They've got a whole list on their website with maps and everything, offering the recreational Avelo diver course. You'll learn system setup, field procedures, including water top-offs and emergency drills, then practice until the muscle memory is automatic. Many centers also rent Avelo kits to rad graduates and host guided dives, and a few locations run Discover Avelo experiences for already certified divers who want a structured single dive trial. As with any gear choice, consider where you're diving, the fills available, your regulator compatibility, and how the lightweight topside experiences and stable buoyancy map to your goals. The Avelo system reframes buoyancy from a bouncy, depth-sensitive bubble to a quiet, mass-tuned state. You still plan your gas, you still mind your ascent, you still hover with your breath, but the platform under you is steadier, the kit is lighter, and the cognitive load, what you're like task loading, is often lower because you're not thinking about it as frequently. Not every diver will need or want to change, yet for many, especially those who value effortless hovering and lighter loads, Avelo's blend of engineering and training will feel like a breath of fresh air. For more information, head over to the Avelo channel and their website, and stay tuned to the November edition of the ANZ magazine for Adrian's breakdown. If you found this video useful, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.